All right. Good afternoon, everyone. How are we all doing? Well, we're going to be even better as you get delivered your wonderful Good Scent sandwiches. Okay. Thanks to an awesome team for making kind of a crunchy situation a little smoother. So please know that we have ham and turkey sandwiches. And then, of course, if you requested a different dietary meal, we have those for you. Take what you want. If not, pass it to a neighbor. We want you to feel comfortable and enjoy your lunch while we enjoy hearing from someone who is very special to the K-State community. So to get us started, my name is Tamara Bauer, and I work here at the Staley School of Leadership. I get to direct our leadership and service programs, and I'm fortunate enough to Matters to Me and Why committee. So if you all are part of the What Matters to Me and Why committee, would you please stand and give a wave? Dr. Choma, we've got Kirsten, Scott, yes, David. Thank you all. We want you to feel as comfortable, as connected as possible. There are restrooms both to the right and to the left outside those back doors. So I want to tell you a little bit about the What Matters to Me and Why speaker series. It is sponsored by the Staley School of Leadership and supported by this cross-campus planning committee that you just met. The What Matters to Me and Why series began in 2017 and was designed to build and strengthen bonds between people who teach, learn, and work together daily. We aim to foster an understanding of how each of us embraces our values at K-State and K-State's values of connection, courage, impact, being learner-focused, people-centered, and stewardship. This series provides us a unique opportunity to hear from K-State faculty and staff members from a wide variety of departments, experiences, and beliefs. This space and this gathering is designed to allow each presenter to share stories that have mattered to their personal journey. It's an opportunity to listen, to really listen, to reflections about how they have chosen to live their life, the core values they have adopted, and the lessons they've learned along the way. We believe this sharing helps to build our K-State community in essential ways. This month is Health and Wellbeing Month at K-State. We just enjoyed our pause day last week. And as we look to the events and activities aimed to bring awareness and support of well-being and health, one of those key areas is social connection. At its core, the What Matters to Me and Why series is about connection, creating space for meaningful storytelling that deepens our understanding of one another. In a world that often prioritizes productivity over reflection, these conversations remind us that our values, experiences, and choices shape not just our careers, but the ways we show up in our communities. So when I think about connection and community, we have so many opportunities and ways that this pillar is lived out at K-State. Take a moment and think about what you value most about connection and how it's fostered for all at K-State. Whether it's the genuine and friendly nature of our people, smiling and saying hello as we pass each other across campus, our solidarity of the love of purple, I see a lot of purple today, or the ways that we elevate the importance of connection, such as through K-State's first book selection this year, Together, Connection and Community Matters. And one of the most significant ways that we feel that sense of connection and togetherness is when we are all fortunate to be part of hearing the K-State Marching Band. What a gift we all receive to be gathered in by the K-State Fight Song, the Alma Mater, and so many others that are dear to our hearts. Today, we have the fortunate opportunity to hear from the face behind it all, Dr. Frank Tracz. What an honor it will be to hear what matters most to you, Dr. Tracz, because you have worked so tirelessly to foster community and connection among Wildcats over the years. So I'd like to invite up Colby Johnson to formally introduce this day's speaker.
Thank you, Tamara. As she mentioned, I'm Colby Johnston. I am the head drum major of the marching band here at Kansas State University, and I've had the blessing of being in the marching band as a member under Dr. Frank Tracz for the past 5 years. Dr. Tracz was born in Cleveland, Ohio, where he attended The Ohio State University for his undergrad and PhD degree in music. He went up to UW-Madison for his master's in between. He was the assistant director of bands at Syracuse University, as well as director of bands at Morehead State University, there we go, before landing at Kansas State University, where he has been the director of bands for the past 33 years. Over his 33 years, he has achieved quite a lot, as well as before that time. Too many to mention while we have the time here in front of you, but some of the highlights include a Lowell Mason Fellow for the National Association for Music Educators, an induction into the Conn-Selmer Institute's Hall of Fame, as well as a adjudicator, clinician, and speaker across the US as well as in 6 other countries. He has impacted not just the marching band members or those under his direction in the bands, but the broader community. And he came here at a pivotal moment in K-State's history, along with Coach Bill Snyder, President Weefald, and Pat Bosco. He has, everywhere he went, left it better than he found it. That is an indelible fact that is noticed wherever he is at. He has often said that you will find your home and build your castle, and that is no understatement for what he has done here, not just in the band hall, not just in his accolades or the program that he has started, but also in each member and part of the community that he has challenged and changed. Dr. Frank Tracz has left it better than he found it, as I mentioned, and he will no doubt continue doing it today. Please help me welcome Dr. Frank C. Tracz.
Well done, Colby. Well done. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Colby, I didn't bring my wallet, but at Bandit, I'll give you another $20 for that. That was a good one there. I appreciate this. Is quite an honor and quite unbelievable. And I told my family, they said, why are you speaking? I said, I have no idea. Just no idea. But I got to tell you, this lunch thing reminded me. My first year at Ohio State, I had enough money to pay for tuition, and I have enough money to pay for the dorm. But I didn't have enough money to pay for the food. So my meal every night was, I had a hot plate. Remember those hot plates? And you plug it in, and I used to buy a case, whatever was on sale from the local Costco or whatever it was at that time, 24 cans of beefaroni. And at 6:15 after marching band rehearsal that night, I'd go back in, and that was my meal. I had a Pepsi. Of course, I could splurge for Pepsi, and a can of beefaroni. I was skinny. I was tall. I could run and jump. I'm none of that anymore. So it just reminds me. The other thing I used to do, this is absolutely terrible, but this is so cool and so funny, and I got away with it almost. I realized that the fraternities on Monday nights to recruit would invite people for dinner. So me and another fellow Ohio State band member figured this out and said, let's just go tell them we're interested. So on Monday nights after band, we'd shower up and put a tie on and a jacket, the whole bit, and we'd go over there and say we're interested in Whamma Damma Gamma or whatever it was at that time. And we'd sit down and they'd start talking, and they'd bring real food out that you actually cut with a knife and you ate with a fork. And it was like potatoes and meat and beans and a salad. And we did that. We went through the entire semester, first quarter of fraternities, and went to every one. And then we started again the second quarter because Ohio State's on a quarter system at that time. And then we finally, somebody pulled us offside, said, you guys are not really interested in this. I said, in the food or you? And so that was the end of that. So that's when they remind me that somebody's making you come here and feeding you lunch is what we do all the time. That's right. Yeah, that's why the band kids do what they do on Saturday, because we feed them a box lunch. You have no idea what any of that means, but if you've been there before, well, first of all, thank you. Let me start with first what's the most important thing. This matters the most to me. Are you ready? These numbers. That is my record against that other university since I've been here. I don't give a damn what anybody says. This is going to be the record when we're done here on Saturday, all right? That's the way it's going to be. So nonetheless, there you go, and it's going to rain, and everybody's preaching gloom and doom. It's a perfect position to be in. And as I told Coach Kleiman, I said, look, if it comes down to it and I need to make a tackle, I'm good for one. And after that, just call an ambulance. Yeah. And then bail money, because I'll need that too. Thank you for being this. Is unbelievable. It's quite an honor. My dad would be proud. My dad was a steel worker for Cleveland, Ohio. I want to thank my wife, last 44 years, for being here. She woke up this morning. She asked me, what do you... You need to stand up. She's fine. She'll be good there. But nonetheless, she asked me this morning, she said, what really does matter to you? And I said, I have no idea. I'm trying to figure this out. So other than this here, that's what's important. So thank you. Like I said, my dad would be proud, Mr. Steelworker, because he used to tell me one thing. He told me this in 6th grade, and I didn't understand what he meant. He said, kid, for God's sakes, and he always started with the Lord's name, Jesus, Baba, Frank. He said, you're so far behind in the race, you think you're running first. Think about that. Think about that. And I'm in 6th grade. He also told me if I didn't marry up, I was screwed. I'm in 6th grade and I don't understand any of this stuff, but I do now. So I don't think I'm last anymore, but I'm closer. But anyway, I grew up, and what's different about me, and this will explain a lot of things here. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Anybody from Cleveland, Ohio, or anywhere in Ohio? It's a different city. Yeah, you understand? Toledo. Yeah, Cleveland is different. It's in the summertime when it was warm and sunny outside. It was still cloudy and dark and gray in Cleveland because of the steel mills and the rubber factories and the automobile factories. It was still dark and dirty and dingy. And growing up with 6 brothers and sisters and all that, they used to call Cleveland the mistake on the lake. That's when the Cleveland Indians at that time. You could go into, I used to ride our bike from about maybe 10 miles away with my buddies. We'd ride to Municipal Stadium on Lake Erie and wait till the second inning, and we put our bikes outside. And by that time, all of the ushers even gave up and everybody left. So we'd go in and watch the Indians play, and they announced the attendance as being like 16,703. And I'm sitting there counting. Okay. 1, 2, we'd get to 300, say, okay, let's count the players. Now we're at 400, but there weren't 16,000 there. So that's where I grew up, and that's the way it was. Lots of family, 6 brothers and sisters. Mom passed away really early from pancreatic cancer. Back then, when you found cancer, they just kind of morphine up, put you away, and it was over, and that's what happened. So my dad was a steel worker, and so I learned a lot from my dad. I learned an awful lot from my dad. He was the best teacher I ever had. He quit school in 8th grade when he came here to work and for his family and stuff. So it was a little different growing up in Cleveland. Not much different than some of you maybe, but just a little bit different, a little bit more tinge on it, a little bit more excitement to life and matter in general here. My education is I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and when you're born in Ohio, and if you were a male, you were given a scarlet and gray football and a cap because everybody wanted to be in Woody Hayes' team. Those of you who don't know who Woody Hayes, just Google him. I'm sure the first thing that's going to come up is him punching Charlie Bauman in Clemson in 1978. Why do I remember that? And I can't remember this morning. I have no idea. But I could see it. I remember Charlie Bauman, the linebacker, and the whole bit, but that's it. So you grew up, you wanted to be a Buckeye. And that's all I wanted to do was go to Ohio State and be in the band. And I remember in 6th grade, 7th grade, when we moved to the first suburb west of Cleveland, I really enjoyed band and I really enjoyed gym class. And so you put the two together, you got band and gym class. That's marching band. That is marching band. So I went to my high school band director at the time, Mr. Konasek. I said, Mr. Konasek, I said, what does it take to become a band director? Because all my brothers and sisters grew up and they went to steel mills and factories or joined the Marines and all that. And the mid-60s was not the time to join the Marines, right? So, but they did. And so I didn't want to do that. So I asked him, I said, what do you have to do? And he told me, take some lessons, practice, do this. So I started doing that. And a couple of months later, I went back there to my high school band director. I said, Mr. Konasek, I said, by the way, do you get paid to do this? And he said, yes. And I said, decision made, I'm in. I'm in. I'm not going to work in the steel mills. I'm not going to do the other stuff. I'm just going to be a band director. It was fun. So one of those geeks in 6th grade that made that decision. Then I went to the Ohio State University. And I remember wanting to be in the band so bad. I practiced and did all that stuff. And it's still a tough band to get into. And I remember there were 75 kids, students auditioning for 3 snare drum spots. And I was one of them. And I didn't think I had a chance. And times were a lot different back then in the way they treated each other, right? You could say what you want, this is the way it is. But I remember for 3 days with auditions, they'd make cuts every day. And by the time I got to the second cut and I made the second cut and there was one more left, I didn't want to do it anymore. It was physically demanding. Oh, they were on you and stuff. And I began to realize that's why that band's like it is. There's no question. So when I made the band, I was actually going, oh God, I'm not going to do this every day. It is nonstop. They expect the best out of you from the time you get on that field to the time you go away and accept nothing else. And that really mattered to me at that time. And it really mattered to me now. Somebody had to literally put up the wall and say, no, this is what you're going to do. This is what you need to do to succeed. We're going to give you a hug at the same time, but at the same time, I'm not going to let go. I'm going to tell you and whisper in your ear what you have to do to succeed, and you're going to do this. And that made a big difference, and that made a big difference. So I went to Ohio State, made the band, did the whole thing, graduated, and I graduated at a bad time because that was the first oil crisis in the mid-70s. And you remember, none of you remember, but gas was, you had to wait in line for gas. And it got to the point that you had to have an ID, and you could only go if on Mondays, if your last name began with A, B, C, D, E, F, or whatever it is. And then when you got up there, you could only buy 5 gallons. And many times by the time you got to the front line, they ran out of gas. And that's when the fight started. And that's when everybody started to buy locks for their gas caps because people now were siphoning out. It was pretty nasty. So there were no jobs. So I was sitting in Columbus, Ohio. I just got my degree, and I'm thinking it'd be great to be a middle school band director in Columbus, Ohio. It's a hip town, lots of good things to do. There's lots of girls there. This would be a good thing. I couldn't find a job. They were laying everybody off. Education was going downhill fast. Then I get a call from the Ohio State band director. He says, "Hey, Frank, Mike Leckrone at the University of Wisconsin called. They're looking for a percussionist. They're looking for someone who wants to get a master's. They're looking for somebody who can write drum parts. They're looking for somebody who wants to conduct." And I said, "I'm it." He says, "I know, call him." So I went there and I interviewed and auditioned and I got the job and I moved to Madison, Wisconsin. Had no idea to do it. Why I tell you that? Because that matters the most, because that was a move that I didn't predict. And that was a move that I didn't select that happened. And some good things happened there. I learned a ton. Mike Leckrone is director of bands. He retired from his position as director of bands and director of the Wisconsin Marching Band after 50 years. And he was 84 years old. He's 89. My best buddy, Jay Gilbert, and I went up this summer. We drove up on a Thursday. We took him to breakfast on Friday morning just because he just turned 89. And he stood up and he still looks great and he's still got the attitude. And we walked in and met him at the restaurant and he stood up and he said, "Tell me," he said, "did you both come here just for this, to see me and my birthday?" And we said, "Yeah, Mike." And he said, "You're still idiots." The guy was 89. He still knows us, right? And we had breakfast and we hugged and the whole bit and shed some tears, and he's still doing right. And we drove back to drop my buddy off in Nebraska, Crete, Nebraska. I came back here to Manhattan, and the next day we started something here, band camp or something. So I did my master's there. I got a great degree, and I met this girl. At the time that I met her, she did have a significant other. They still have not found him. But nonetheless, 44 years later, we're still together. So that's a pretty cool thing. And I also learned how to drink beer. If you're not from Madison, Wisconsin, you simply do not know how to do that. Okay. They taught me how to do that. And people say I had a great experience and learned a lot at Madison. I don't remember most of it, but nonetheless, there we have. Went back to Ohio. Actually, when I was in Wisconsin, I was teaching junior high and elementary, giving lessons in the morning from about 7:40 to 11:40 at DeForest and Windsor Middle School. And then I went back to Ohio, taught high school for 4 years. And when I went there, I thought, this is it. This is where I want to be. This is got married. We settled down, had a nice thing going in Ohio. And all of a sudden, I started to think, I wonder what it's like to be a teacher of teachers. So I went back to the Ohio State University. We moved to Columbus. I got my doctorate. And my first college teaching job was Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York, as the assistant. We moved there. I worked there for 4 years. We had 2 children at the time. And then I met a good man, a great friend of mine. His name is Larry Blocker, a big name in the music education world. And he was at Syracuse. Then he went back home to his school at Morehead State. And he was there for a year. And he called me. He says, "Hey, the director of bands at this time is leaving. He's going to get his doctorate at Florida State. He doesn't want to come back to Morehead State. You come down here for 2 years, do this, and we'll make you a permanent director from interim. We'll just move it on up." So I said, sure, because I did it for there's more money. I had 2 children. They're expensive. You know that, right? So we moved to Morehead State, and we taught there for 2 years. And sometime in January, my phone rings. And it was a guy named Gary Mortensen. And Gary Mortensen was on a search committee for a place called Kansas State University. He said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to come in and build a band program." He said, "We think the university is about ready to take off, and the athletic teams are about ready to take off. We want the band to take off too." And he says, "We've been calling around the country, and we're looking for a builder, somebody that could roll up their sleeves and get this done." He said, "Everybody gives us your name." So I kind of laughed and I said, "Yeah." I said, "I got a lot of enemies and they're trying to get even with me and send me to Kansas, for God's sakes, you know." So I said, "Sure, let's look at this anyway." So I got off the phone. This was before the cell phones, this was before the internet. And I called who I'd normally call when I want the right answers. I called my wife. I said, "Hey, have you ever heard of a place called Kansas State?" She goes, "Yes." I said, "I have not." I said, "Where's Kansas?" She says, "Right below Nebraska." I said, "Where's Nebraska?" She goes, "For God's sakes, come home." So I went home, and you have to get the atlas out. She opened it up and pointed smack dab to the belly button of America, and that was Manhattan, Kansas. And I saw where it was. And I said, "Well, I'm going to go interview. We may move there. Who knows?" Right? So I got the job. And here's the interesting thing about what matters, because I started to learn a lot from day one. And I tell our kids all the time, the thing that they have to understand, this is the most important thing in education. You have to sponge. You have to soak it up. Most of the things that I do, 95% of what I do every day in my job, I did not take a single class in. Recruiting, fundraising, PR, motivating. Oh my God. I didn't take any class in that. I could tell you a lot. No, I can't tell you much about music before 1750 because I got a D in that course. And I had a big party when I got the D in that course. I said, I'll never touch. In fact, the book was History of Western Music by Donald Grout. You come into my office, you walk into the McCain office, the first thing you're going to see on the shelf there is that tattered book by Donald Grout that I had in 1974. Because every time I look at that, it reminds me, it could be worse. It could be worse. I'd have to do that. So I tell you that because none of what I got in my degree, I use on a daily basis until I get in front of the band. And then it's there. And I tell you what, that's the easy part. That's the easy part. So I went to Syracuse University, I went to Morehead State for 2 years, and I get to Kansas State. I got the job, and here's my first interview, and I knew it was going to be different. This doesn't happen anymore, but there was a guy named John Weefald that was here. And I didn't know anything about him, but my first interview was in the president's conference room. It was in a different room than it is now and had that big oak and walnut table. And there were like 10 to 12 people on each side. He sat on that end. I sat on this end. 8 o'clock in the morning. This is my first interview. This is the first interview. I didn't talk with anybody from the School of Music. Gary Mortensen was on the table. There were alumni there. The athletic directors were there. The alumni president was there. The foundation president was there. Every vice president was there. The president was there. And some alumni of the school were there. And one representative from the School of Music out of about 25, 26 people. And Weefald sat at the table. And as those of us that know John Weefald, he started. And he went off. And he ended up with pounding the desk saying that we're building a great football program here. We got a coach that's going to take us to the promised land. We're going to vie for national championships in 10 years. He was wrong. We vied for those championships in 5 years after that. In 98, we were #1 in the country. Let's not talk about that, all right? Let's just skip that here, okay? But he pounded his fist and he said, and this band is a blankety embarrassment. And we were told, you can fix it. Can you fix it? And he punched the desk. Now, there's a couple things to remember. I applied for the director of band's job that was not marching band. And I'm sitting there the whole time, he's talking just marching band, just marching band, just marching band. I'm thinking, this is the president of the university. I'm not going to correct him. But when he pounded that table and asked the question, everybody was looking at him, and it was like a tennis match. Everybody did this. And I'm going through my mind going, he's just asking me questions about a job that I didn't apply for. So I was looking for the director of bands job, and then my job after that was going to run a search committee to find an assistant director of bands, which we ended up doing. But at that point, Daddy didn't raise no dummy. What was in that room? Power, money. Every one of them wanted to have, there was no alumnus there. His first name was J.M. And he asked a question. And he said, Dr. Tracy said, I know you're a graduate of The Ohio State University. He goes, I'm a graduate of my doctorate from University of Michigan. And I held back. I held back because the first thing through my mind was not something you could say in public, right? Yeah. And he said, we know that Ohio State has a great band and Michigan has a great band. And I want to know as alumnus of K-State and of Michigan, could you do that here? And I said, well, thanks for your kind words stuff. I said, but I was not aware that Michigan had a marching band. Nobody at the tables got that. He was a very wealthy man, and here's what he did. Then he did this, OH. That's the greeting if you're a Buckeye. Somebody says OH, you say IO. And then we started to talk. Make a long story short, cut to the chase. After the first football game, my first halftime show, he came up to me on a Monday in my office with a check for $35,000. $35,000 in 1993 was $17,857,000. And he said, I'm going to keep this coming if you stay here. He said, you're on your route. And I thought the band was not very good. In fact, my very first halftime pregame performance, are you ready for this? This is great. My wife caught it and nobody else did. because my kids would go, at this time, there were two little girls, they would come to the game and bring Barbie doll cases and cars and all kinds, and spread out in the entire section because there was nobody else there. Seriously, there was nobody else there. So we spell on the field. You know how we spell out K-State on the field? Right now, you look at this, and it spells out K-State or whatever, whatever we do there. And it's from end zone to end zone, from top to top. Back then, the band was so small, it was between the hash marks and the 40s. And so what happened is when the kids got scared, there was one person, and this was completely different. There was one person that made this line, and they went to the wrong yard line. So I spelled out at my first pregame, K-E Tate. And nobody noticed. Nobody noticed except my wife. I came home, she goes, how'd it go? I said, oh, God, I don't know. She goes, did you watch the video? And I looked at her, that usually means watch the video. She goes, you should at least spell the school name correctly. I went, oh, God. And I looked at it, and sure it was, there it was, K-E Tate. I have a picture of that in my office, K-E Tate, and right next to it is the last year's K-State, which is like massive, right? So it could be worse. And I kept my job because nobody noticed except Weefall. Because he would call on a Monday, and I would answer the phone, and his secretary, Rhonda, would say, Dr. Tracz, Dr. Weefall would like to speak with you. I said, great. So I'd be there 7:45 every freaking Monday after a football game. 8 on a Monday. This is after basketball games, a volleyball game, and a football game, and getting ready for classes. 7:45, I ran in and I said, hey, Dr. Weefall, good to talk to you. And if the conversation started with, well, you know, Frank, he really likes something. So we kept doing it. Every once in a while, it started with, blankety damn it, Frank. And I just listened and I wrote stuff down, and whatever he didn't like, we never did that again. It was important. So I tell you that because the path is different, and I learned what mattered, and I learned what the difference was. And then when I left Wisconsin, before I did the college thing, I taught high school for 4 years at West Geauga. And here's the thing that mattered to me the most, and here's because it mattered to me, because Ken Konasek, my high school band director, saved me. He saved me. He taught me how to play. He taught me a lot of good musical things and musician things, but he taught me how to behave. He taught me how to work hard. He taught me to set goals in what I did. So that really mattered to me, the teacher. So when I went back, I was coming back from Wisconsin on the weekend. I wanted to go back up to Wisconsin. I wanted to teach in Wisconsin because I kind of found something that, you know, maybe I'd like to get more serious about and that sort of thing. And I came back, and my high school band director called me again and said, hey, Frank, West Geauga High School's open. It's the second largest building, second largest high school in the state of Ohio. The Big Ten, Notre Dame, all recruit football players there. They come every Friday night to recruit. It's that type of program. And so he said, the program's open, the program's a mess. Band director got fired, inappropriate this, yada, yada, yada. He said, it's got no place to go but up. He said, it pays well. It's in Cleveland. You could live at home. That was a negative. Yeah. Now, so I went and I interviewed for the job on Friday, on a Friday afternoon. The guy called me, he says, come on in, let's talk. He says, we already got 3 finalists, but I'll talk to you. I'll give you the experience of interview. I says, great. So I went in there and talked to him, gave him my resume, and we talked for an hour and a half. This is on Friday. I left there at 5:30. And it was on the east side of Cleveland. I drove to the other side of Cleveland, to the west side where my dad was. But on the way there, I stopped at Fridays. Had a couple and some nachos. And I get home, my dad says, where the hell have you been? Some guy named Wally Mall's trying to call you. And that was the principal. Said he wants to talk to you right away. So I called Molly. He says, where are you, Mr. Tracz? I said, well, I just got back to my dad's house. I said, could you come back here? The superintendent wants to talk to you. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not exactly in a good position to go meet the superintendent here. I said, but I'll be there. Give me an hour. So of course, took a cold shower and gargled, brushed my teeth the whole bit, and had some coffee and did it again. I went over there. And about an hour after I got the interview there, I got offered the West Geauga job, high school, and I didn't want it. I didn't want it. And so I ended up taking it because it was a good situation to be in, because at that time you didn't know what was going to happen. So the reason I asked him later on, I said, why did you hire me? Why did you call me back? He said, you said one thing that no other candidate did. I said, what was that? He said, you told me that you weren't here to teach band. You were here to teach students and use the band to do that. I said, I don't think that's so strange or weird. He said, it is. In the education world, sometimes it is. I said, but that canceled every other candidate out. And there were candidates here that have been teaching 20, 25 years that they were looking at. I said, I don't have a full-time gig yet. He says, well, you do now. And that changed just because of that attitude, because that really matters to me. And I continue to do that this point here. The truth is, once I got the gig at K-State, And this is really strange. Rich is going to like this. When I was shaking hands with everybody after that first presidential meeting for 2.5 hours, Pat Bosco, I shook his hand and I started to walk out and he grabbed me by the jacket, pulled me back and then closed the door. And he looked me in the eye and he grabbed me. He said, "You got this job. Start thinking about what's going to take to get you here. What do you need? You'll get it." And I'm thinking, I haven't met anybody in the School of Music yet. And I got the job. That was weird. And it gets better. I went to the School of Music. I couldn't call there was no cell phone. I couldn't escape to call my wife. I said, "What do I do? I got the job. I haven't met anybody yet." But I knew that this was a mess because I called the rival at the University of Kansas, who's a legend, is now retired. I told him, I said, I'm going to interview for the job at K-State. Do you have any advice? He said, "Don't go." I said, "Are you saying that just because the rival?" Says, "No, it's a mess. It never will be any good till things happen, so on and so forth. It's a mess. It's not going to happen. Don't go." And I hung up the phone, called other people, and they said the same thing. But when I met with Weefald and Bosco, I thought, there's something here. There's something here. Then in my first interview in the committee, and remain nameless, there were like 5, 6 people on a committee. One person asked me, said, "Dr. Tracz, could you name 3 books that you recently read and tell them how they've affected you?" I said, "Great." And without skipping a beat, because I'm thinking, I already got the job, so I'm not sure if I want to go home. I just want to go. I'm not sure this is right. I said, "Well, the first book is Hop on Pop, Are You My Mother, and Green Eggs and Ham." Everybody did this except this one person who gave me that. And I swear to God, I saw her and she looked at me and she wrote on her piece of paper, "Smart ass." And I said, "Let me explain." I said, "First of all, I have 2 children. And at Morehead State, my job as director of bands, as I go out and recruit and I'm gone all the time. That's part of the job. That is part of the job. So I'm gone on the weekends. And on Sunday when I come home, or Saturday, I come into the rental house that we had, which is a split level, and my 2 little girls are in their onesies, pajamas, and they're waiting for me at the top of this first level there. And I open up the door and I have my suit bag and my briefcase, and they scream, "Dad," and they jump. Both of them. And I drop everything and I catch them and I walk up the stairs. And the first thing I do is I sit in the mommy chair. And that's the only time I'm allowed to sit in the mommy chair. Because right next to it is 2 little tables. They have sippy cups and 3 books. So I hold them up there. They're doing their little sippy cups things. And I'm reading these books until they fall asleep. And then we put them together and I see my wife and we chat a little bit more. I said, "That's what I do. That's all I have time to read." I said, "And if you'd like, I'm going to go home tomorrow night. I'll call you. I'll call you the next day and tell you the new 3 books that I read and tell you how that's affected me." And I thought, well, that's not going to. Everybody else on the committee laughed, but they stopped because they thought somebody was mad at them for that, right? So, and I thought, I almost said, "Look, I already got the gig. You're no longer interviewing me. I'm interviewing you." And as I walked in that rehearsal room in 201, pathetic. 19 kids in the band, 19 kids in the wind arms. There was one flutist that we tried to play Armenian dances, those of you musicians. And we got through the first 8 bars and I stopped. And I stopped. And I took my jacket off, unloosened my tie, I straddled the chair on the podium and I looked at this. I said, "Tell me why you came to school here. What attracted you to come to school here?" God is my witness. The flute player looked at me, she says, "I didn't want to be here. My mom made me." I went, "Well, this is great." And I looked at the timpani. There were 3 timpani. If you know anything about timpani, 2 were the same size. There's 4 different sizes. I looked at the bells that they were playing. It was a bell lyre from 1954 with the bars on a whole bit balanced on 2 wooden chairs. And then I looked at the chimes, and there were chime bars missing, which meant that some percussionists had a party that Friday and turned those into bongs and took them home. They're going to bring them back on Wednesday. That's another crossing the line there, isn't it, right? So I looked at this and said, if I take this job, if I just come up and clean 201 and I buy a set of timpani, 4 different ones, and if I buy a stand for the bells, and if I find out where that party was and get those bars back, we're already better. We took a nice step better. So I realized at that time that there's some potential here. It's one thing to go someplace that's already there, because all you can do is screw it up. All you can do is screw it up. Being from Ohio State, when you interview, and I got a couple job offers from major Big Ten universities that I could have walked in and been the band director and not have to recruit so hard. Their budgets and their scholarship things are right there. I wouldn't have to do any of that. I'd just be a band director. But at the end of the ball game, when I left one of those schools, just like at Ohio State or the University of Michigan, they just put your name on a plaque and you're done. You haven't left anything there. You just kept it going. The opportunity here to make a difference and to build was the most enticing and motivating, and to be honest with you, wore me out experience that you could ever have. This was the best place to be. And here's why it was the best place to be. Every time I got a phone call from someplace else and I talked to Weefald about it, I got another grad student or two, and then a secretary, and then a raise. So you play that game. Was there a class on how to do that? No. What was my experience? I just built. I just spent the time. I just spent the time doing what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to be doing it, and let everything else take care of itself. But there was a difference here. When I compared it to other schools, bigger salaries every place else until Weefald found out. And Max Europe found out. Because they liked what was going on. For whatever it was, they liked what was going on. I looked at what the offer was, and I looked at the people I'd be working for. And there's no place in this country where you had a John Weefald, a Pat Bosco, an Amy Renz, and the king of all, Bill Snyder. That didn't exist. And all of them appreciated and loved the band and what we do. Now you're thinking, is this a band, just a marching band school? No, it's not. People would use that against us all the time. Our wind ensembles played at the American Bandmasters Association, which is a conference started by freaking John Philip Sousa. You all know who that is. So that's a pretty good thing. It's vetted, it's recorded. We've played at the CBDNA Nationals twice. We played in Carnegie Hall. We've played in the Kennedy Center. We've played all those. So these are good. This is a good program. But it started from someplace that wasn't, and we just surrounded ourselves with good people and figured out a way to make it work. And the thing here is that mattered most to me is to do the right things. I'm still teaching kids. I'm using band. I'm using marching band. You don't think we're teaching those kids? You follow us. I invite all of you to follow us on a Saturday. If the next game is 11 o'clock kick, I invite you to come with us, but you have to go from the beginning to the end. And you have to meet me in the office at 3:30. Because that's when the staff's going to be there. We'll have our meeting. We'll get the electronic stuff. And at 5 o'clock, we're going to go over to the bill. And we'll walk into the bill, and there's 425 kids already there. Nobody's late. They did basketball the night before. They did pub crawl. They haven't gone to bed. Nobody's late. Why? I pull in there with Alex, and I look at him on the way there. I said, Alex, I don't know, man. This is a young man's job, and I'm terribly overqualified for this. I just can't do this. And I pull in there, and you look at the kids, and the tubas are doing what the tubas do. The drums are practicing. The classic cats are practicing. The trombones are playing football against the baritones, which I have to remind them there's a reason you're in the band. It's quite obvious here. Playing soccer, playing hacky sack, flirting, making out. We encourage all of this. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. They haven't slept in 30 hours, and they're excited about their school. They're excited about their band. They're excited about their team. And they go through the day. We rehearse for an hour and a half. We have a little meeting there. And then at 8 o'clock, we feed them lunch. Yes. And then we do pep bands till we barf. We're everywhere. We're like white on rice. I got a T-shirt that says, I'm not cheap, but I'm easy. Right? We sell pep bands, and we do that, and the money goes right back to the kids and scholarships. It's just right there. And then we get dressed, and we march over to the game. And if you've been to a football game, they don't stop. They don't sit still. It's herding 400 cats. It's the greatest job in the world, because when I stand up in front of them, I'm 18 again. I am 18. As soon as the game's over, I got to tell you, I am not. That little guy pops up and says, you are old. The joints, the two knees have been replaced, the Tommy John surgery here, the shots here, the thumbs taken out. I have to go to my office, get the can of WD-40 and grease them up again and get them going. It hurts so good. It hurts so good. And you watch those kids. They're elated when we score. They're happy as can be when we win. And they're sad and they're crying when we lose. Because this is their school. This is their band, and they take care of it. And I think that's the thing that matters most to me, is to look back at this, because I'm done. Boy, am I done. I am done. You thought I had little patience before. I have zero patience now. I had a kid come to my office 2 weeks ago, and I knew what he was going to ask her. It was just some nonsense thing. I'm like, why are you doing this? You've been in the band for 3 years. He walked up, and I stopped, and I said, look, I smelled it before you got here. So the answer is no, turn around, go away. And he says, how'd you know? I said, I know these things. And he laughed. He said, okay. But it's just, I'm ready. I'm ready. But I'm looking back at this and thinking about what mattered the most to me my whole time. And it's this. And I tell the kids this all the time, and I'll give some time for questions here. But this is really important to me. And I do a lot of in-services and talking to teachers. I work for Consumer in the summer. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm not going to retire and go to coffee shops and do the lawn and stuff, because my wife's asking me now, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So I'm going to find something, maybe even Consumer. But this is the beginning. We've all been there, right? Congratulations, you were born. This is it. It's coming. Nobody gets out of this world alive. Not a single one of us gets out of this alive. But here's the route we traverse right here. Some of us don't last very long. Some of us last a long, long time. As I tell the kids this, you don't know this, man. You don't know when this is going to be. So you're tired? Yeah, welcome. Welcome to adulthood. Yeah, and I tell them all the time, I said, you're in college, man. Enjoy the hell out of this. Because you graduate, you turn into an adult. And I just speak for my percentage of adults. 98% of adulthood sucks. I'm just being honest with you. I'm just being honest with you. So you don't know when this is over. So why would you get up any day and waste it? It hurts. I can tell you, I had somebody wrote me an email, said, Dr. Tracz said, I just woke up this morning. I'm not feeling quite well. Something's not right. I don't think I'm going to be at rehearsal today. I wrote back. I said, the last time I woke up in the morning and felt right and well was August 13th, 1976. I said, so I will see you at 3:30 on the field. Kid wrote back, yes, sir. And he walked in, he looked good. I said, it's a miracle. Thank you, Jesus. It's a miracle. Look at that. Yeah. So it's one of those where you just have to kind of get up and do it. And the other thing that I talk about a lot before I ask you some questions is I go into everything this way. Absolutely everything. My garage, my house, my office, my rehearsals, my band, everything in that area. And the first thing I ask myself is, what is? What am I seeing? What is there? What is? What is factual? Where's the start? And the second thing I'll ask myself is this. What could be? We all do that because we all have dreams, don't we? Now, here's the deal. This is where I'm trying to be successful, as I try to build the bridge to get to what could be. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of work. That doesn't happen in 40 hours a week. Cancer is not going to be cured from 8 to 5. Somebody working 8 to 5 with 2 15-minute breaks, an hour for lunch, and then personal days off. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be a band kid that cures it. Because they just know how to grit it out and figure, and don't eat and don't sleep and muscle through it and fight through it and get the damn thing cured. Because we've all lost people from cancer, haven't we? Some of us are fighting cancer. Let's cure this thing, because a band kid's going to do it. And when they're done with that, I'll have a pep band there for free. We're going to have a party, then we're going to have a parade, escort that band kid over to the Heart Research Building. Some more, buddy. You got some more to do. And then we'll do that. So the point is this, is we try to figure out what it is. We know what it is, but we know what could be with the dreams. Then we try to build the bridge to get here. And here's the key to success. Ready? This really matters to me. I will never get there. I don't want to ever get there, because then you're done. You're done. What's after that? I don't know. I'm afraid of what's after that. I will never get that. So every time I get close to it, even here with this band program, I take this what could be and move it over here. And I have to keep building the bridge. What does that do? It makes the program better. What does that do? It makes better kids. What does that do? It keeps me happier and working the hours that I do. What does that do? It makes a difference in the world. It makes a difference in their world and everybody else's world. These things really matter to me. Again, the vehicle is the band. The purpose is the heart and soul of those kids. And sometimes honesty hurts. You come to band rehearsal sometime, and I know they'll tell you, I'm not the most pleasant, positive person all the time. But I got to tell you, look in the mirror. You're ugly. Here's what you have to do. You have to take a shower, comb your hair, brush your teeth, shave. Now, let's start from there. So I will be brutally honest with them to get them going, to get them through that. That is difficult to do these days right now. It's very difficult to do. So with that being said, the idea behind all of this and the thinking about what it is, if it's going to be, it's up to me is my attitude. If it's going to happen, I got to do this. I got to do this. If I have to build up some people around me to help me do this, I'm going to do that. If I have to do it myself, I will. We opened up the new band hall. Your husband sent me a text right away that night. We opened up the new band hall and it was dirty, third day in it. And I was there about 11:30 at night, so I got the vacuum out and I'm vacuuming the carpet. I'm a tenured full professor. I'm vacuuming the carpet. And one of the grad students saw that and was videotaping it and put it out on social media. 10 minutes later, I get a text from President Litton. Says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm in a band hall." He said, "There's video going around, but you vacuuming the rug." I said, "It was dirty. And the building's got my name on it." So this, like, I better keep it clean, you know? He said, "We have people to do that." I said, "But they're not here right now, so I'll take care of it. It'll be ready. It'll be dirty tomorrow. They'll be able to clean it up." But that's what matters to me. That's what my life is about, is leaving it better than you found it. And it's not always a pleasant situation. It's not always a good situation. It's not about the goals. It's about the process. And one of the sessions I do right now when I go around the country and talk about this is everybody's goal oriented. What are the goals for education? What are the goals for this? The heck with the goals. What's the process to get there? Because if you don't enjoy the process of your life and of your job, you're missing it. Because if you're waiting for the paycheck on Friday, like my family did, they had jobs because they had to have those jobs to eat. And they worked 51 weeks a year for 1 week off. And what did my dad do on the week off? We painted the house. Seriously. Or we dug out the backyard and planted grass or shrubs. That was our vacation. Which, would I do it again? In a heartbeat. And I'll leave you with this last story. My dad was an incredible influence on my life. And in 7th grade, I was walking back from school, and we had this little house in Cleveland, Ohio, all the same houses. They were a couple feet apart, you know, in their little lots. The grass couldn't have been in this area in here. But he was meticulous with his grass, and that's where I get this disease from. And I was walking back, and I said, he was home. It was 3 o'clock. My dad doesn't come home until 4:30. Steele Neal's coming home at 4:30. And I'm looking at him. He's pushing a lawnmower. It was a gas lawnmower, but it was not self-propelled. And his right arm had a big ball cast on it, and all the way up to here. And he's pushing the lawnmower. And I come up and said, "Dad, what are you doing?" He says, "What's it look like I'm doing, for God's sake? He's cutting the grass." I said, "What'd you do to your arms?" "Just a little accident at work today. It'll be all right." I said, "Well, let me do that." And here's what he said. No. I said, "Come on, let me do that." He says, "No, I still have one good arm." And about 12 weeks later, when this all came out, the truth finally came out. A piece of steel, he got in an accident. He lost parts of his fingers, part of his thumb, his little pinky was gone, and one of the portion of the other one's there. And it crushed his elbow, so he couldn't open it up all the way. So back then, they just kind of cut it off and sewed it up, and it was ugly and had stumps and stuff, and he couldn't move his whole arm. And then there's one time that Gerald and I came back from Morehead State to visit my 2 little daughters. And we were pulled in the driveway, and I saw my dad. By that time, he had another accident at Steel Mills, was paralyzed from the waist on down. He was in a wheelchair. And I saw his wheelchair in the front yard, and he wasn't around. And this was a neighborhood that was probably on the border, you know. I thought, oh, no. So Gerald says, "Go see where he is." So I kept the car running. I got out, and I'm walking around the yard, and I'm yelling, "Dad, Dad." And all of a sudden, I hear him say, "What?" And I come around the side of the house. This explains me. He's got a metal bucket and a weed digger, no shirt on. He was as strong as an ox from the waist on up. And he's scooting on his rear end with his work pants on the grass, pulling out dandelions. I said, "Dad, we could hire somebody to do this." "I could do this." And I said, "Well, Jessica and Kelly are here, and Gerald's here. Let's go to dinner, and we're gonna stay for the week." He said, "Oh, that'd be great." He said, "Tell you what, I'm a little tired. Go get my wheelchair." So I pulled the wheelchair. You ever push a wheelchair on the grass with somebody in it? Yeah. I pulled it next to him. I was going to help him. I said, "No, just lock the wheels. I can get up." And he came back, and he got his arms, and he grabbed the things, and he muscled himself up, got the chair. He said, "Push me on the driveway. Let's go in the house." So I thought, you know, anytime that I get in a situation where I don't think I could do this, I think of him. I got another arm. Let me do this. You know, just help me up. I'm a little bit tired. I'm gonna pull the weeds out. I can't use my legs. I can't walk around, but I can scoot on my rear end. I can pull the dandelions out. That guy taught me a lot about perseverance. He taught me a lot about grit. So with my children and with my bands and the students that I teach, I had to try to do that same thing. Because we can get through things together if we do that. Not always going to win the war, but we'll learn something from the loss. So that being said, you know what matters most to me? I've got till June 30th or whatever. Then I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna do something. Questions?
First, big round of applause. I don't
Anybody
know.
have any questions?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know about you all, but I can feel all of what he was talking about. So I hope you're feeling some energy, some reflection, some purpose. But yes, we'd love to open it up for questions. Carson is over here with this microphone. We'd love for you to introduce yourself so we can help this with the community. And then Tracy Hurt is in the back talking to our awesome Zoom folks. So who's got our first question?
It's like a band rehearsal. Everybody's afraid to talk, which is good. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Beth Powers. I work here in the Staley School. Why did you choose percussion?
Another great story. Ready? I went to a Catholic school and I have the scars to prove it. My mom died when I was in 3rd grade, and Sister Bartholomew was the teacher. And so at the end of 3rd grade, she said, next year we're going to start a band, a Catholic school band, first time ever. She goes, who would like to do that? In Catholic schoolese, that means you're going to play in a band. So we all raised our hands. So I raised my hand. Tommy Smock was my best buddy. And Tommy's dad just went missing in Vietnam. They never found him to this day. So we became, having lost a mom, he lost a dad. We kind of became together, you know, and try to figure out what this is all about, what this meant. So Tommy and I said, well, let's play trumpet. I always wanted to play trumpet, so we're going to play trumpet. So, you know, we did the test on the piano with a high note and a low note and got that right and stuff. And then I went home and signed the performance papers, and my dad tried it and wanted to make sure it didn't cost him anything. Are you going to practice? I said, yes, I'm going to play trumpet. So I went back the next day, and then the next day, Sister Bartholomew came in and said, we're going to do the test here. Put your hands up. They want to see if everybody had fingers. So being me, I said, Tommy, let's do this. And so we did that. And Tommy did that, and he got scared. Because if you've seen the movie Blues Brothers where the nun levitates, yes, she did that. I swear to God, she did. She was 6'4". She was Italian. She had a little mustache. She was a linebacker for Woody Hayes in the 50s. She was incredible. But she went up and Tommy put his fingers like that. And I came to me and I froze. And she came right up to me and peeled my fingers up. And then grabbed my little peach fuzz and slapped me and made me come in the front and kneel down and thank Jesus that I had all my fingers. So I was praying, but I was praying, don't tell my dad, because my dad will make an honest person out of me and cut those off tonight, right? Not really, but that was it. So I became I wanted to be a trumpet player. And then when we came back into the room, she said, flutes are going to go with Sister so-and-so. She went down the line with the instruments. Trumpets are going to go with Father so-and-so. I said, oh, thank you. She goes, and drummers are going to stay in here with me. So me and Tommy were waiting. We were the last ones to walk out. And we got to the door. And all of a sudden, Sister Bartholomew's hands came on each of our shoulders. She turned us around. She goes, no, boys, you're drummers. Because she was doing the drums. So that's how I became a drummer. So I had to, this is the Catholic school. They have God on their side. You can't argue with this stuff, right? So my biggest worry is I got to go home and tell the old man, I'm not playing trumpet anymore. I'm playing drums. And he goes, drums, for God's sakes, it's loud. I said, no, I won't practice here. That'll be all right. So he never knew. He never knew. But that was the reason why I became a drummer. I always wanted to go back and tell Sister Bertha. I'm sure she's still alive. She's like 180. She's sitting there, but I know what she'll do. She'll make me kneel down and thank Jesus that I turned out all right. And I would, yeah. But did that answer your question? Okay. Long story, a good one. Yes.
Real quick, we're going to hop on Zoom and then we'll go to you. Does that sound okay?
All right, this is from Kristen Bruce. What advice do you wish someone had told you before you got started in your career or at the beginning of your career?
You know, I'm glad nobody told me much. Because I had to find it out for myself, and by that time it was too late to back out of it. Because this was a challenge. There wasn't a lot of support here. There was a lot of anything. It's one of those. I could plead ignorance. I just didn't know. I just didn't know. I knew nothing about the state of Kansas. I knew nothing about the lack of support for the university. I knew nothing about the band program, knew nothing about anything. And I came in and I learned, and as I learned, I developed a plan to deal with it. Sometimes I couldn't, but I developed a plan. So the answer to that question is first of all, this is a great place to live. This is a fantastic university. You know, I'm a Buckeye. You cut me deep enough. There's a little scarlet and gray there, but most of it's purple, man. I'm telling you. I drank the Kool-Aid. So I don't, those of us that laugh about that, you understand where that drank the Kool-Aid came from thing? It's like one of the ultimate tragedies of mankind. And we're telling people to drink the Kool-Aid, which is okay. Yeah, yeah. But nonetheless, so yeah, so the answer is I don't want to know sometimes. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ashlyn. I'm a sophomore in music ed. At the very beginning, you said like find your home and build your castle. How do you, in your early career, you were moving around a little bit more before you came to K-State. How do you start building?
You know, it's the saying is find a home and build a kingdom. There's a great teacher and motivator out there, Tim Lautzenheiser, Dr. Tim, and I did my first session at the Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic, like in the, I don't know, 80s or something like that. I've done a number of them since then, but that's how he introduced me. He said, "This gentleman is looking. He found a home and he's building a kingdom." And I didn't know what that meant. But what I could tell you right now is my goal was exactly this, is I went into wherever I was, whether it was West Geauga High School, whether it was Syracuse University, whether it was Morehead State. I looked at what is, and I figured out what could be, and I learned to enjoy the process to get there. The kingdom, somebody else is going to define the kingdom. That's not up to me. Somebody else is going to say, if you ask me about this band, the marching band and wind ensemble, I think they're very, very fine ensembles. But somebody else is going to make that decision. Somebody else is going to do that for themselves. That's not me. That's why I keep pushing it. That's why we have evaluations on Tuesdays after the football games, right? And we build a plan to get better for Saturdays. I don't think you could find a place where you want to build a kingdom. I think you need to find a place where it fits and it feels good and go to work. That's the problem right now. The 8-to-5 job, if you're going to be a success, does not exist. At least I don't think it does. It just doesn't. Find some place that feels good and then go to work. Because the grass is not always greener on the other side of the fence. They have weeds, you have weeds, theirs is greener. Here's what's better. Don't buy the house with the green grass and the clean yard and everything else that's painted nice. Buy the house that needs a roof, buy the house that needs painting, buy the house that needs yard work, and then do it. And once you get done and you're standing in front of the curb and you look at it and it's done, there's a feeling there that you can't buy. There's no drug or anything that you could take to make you feel that good because you did it yourself. And then the first thing I think about, okay, what can I add to the house? Keeps me going. Good question.
Yeah, and I'd say you're already on a great start. She has a full page of notes from today and thinking about.
Good for you. So you understand sponging. Of course you do.
I know,
Yeah.
right away. She started with the sponge.
Yeah.
I know we are at 1:00. You all might have more questions you want to visit. Maybe Dr. Tracz can stick around for a
Sure
little bit
can.
if others can come up, but let's give him our sincere appreciation.